Hello again, everybody. Thanks for sticking around and joining us for the new release rundown. We're joined by Elle this week from Mox Boarding House again.
Good afternoon.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about Mox?
Yeah, so Mox Boarding House is a premier game store in the Seattle area. We have 2 locations, one in Ballard and one in Bellevue, as well as one coming up in Oregon soon. So great place to come in, play a game. We have a free games library, so you can come borrow games and try them out. We even have a restaurant you can eat at while you play.
And so, many of these games will be in your board game library. Is that possible?
So some of these are currently in our library. I would say about half of them are. The other half might not be yet, but as we have more games that come in, we will have them added to it as well.
Great. So then let's get into it. Which game do you want to start off with?
Well, I would love to start with Heads Will Roll.
Okay.
So it won't stand up on its own, but just to give you a quick peek at it, Heads Will Roll is a really great party game. So if you've ever played, table football, where you fold up the paper and you try and toss it into someone's hand and you like that, you're going to love this because this is a much better version of that.
Oh, how so?
So in Heads Will Roll, you are taking all the heads. Have you played Dragoon?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so anyone who hasn't played Dragoon, it is a game where you are dragons and you are basically attacking the humans and trying to get as much gold as you can. Heads Will Roll is what the dragons do when they're done attacking the humans. So they take all the human heads and you are rolling them on the table, and then you are trying to flick one gold head into the other gold head.
Okay.
Now, you get points for doing this. You also get points if you go between 2, so kind of like golf.
Sure.
And you get extra flicks if you do it.
Sure. Well,
and that's the entire game.
It sounds very simple, but like the real kind of key for Dragoon was just the components, and it looks like, because all the components in Dragoon were like this solid metal, they were really well put together, and it looks like these are using the same pieces?
Yeah, these are the same pieces. The heads have that same thematic look. Even the tie string bag is this really nice bag that matches the same as the original Dragoon components. It's just really beautiful. It's a nice, quick tabletop game that you can pick with your friends over dinner. It's just all about dexterity. Even if, like, I've tried it a bunch and I failed miserably, but it was still fun. Like, you don't have to be good at it to be fun, which is nice.
I have to say, like, it sounds like it's pretty straightforward and simple, but the fact that you're flicking, like, weirdly shaped dragon heads with spikes on them, especially over carpet, if you play it on carpet.
Oh, I can't imagine doing it on carpet.
Yeah. So, like, we actually, oddly enough, I played this at Origins because my wife had a copy, and like while we were waiting for some friends, and we were trying to figure out what we're gonna do for Reg. Like there was a line, like the stuff that happens at a con.
Yeah.
So they were just kind of busting this out and playing on the floor, and we were flicking, and then like the spike would catch on something, so you'd flick this way, and the dragon head would totally go that way.
Yeah. No. There's a lot of these are not just like marbles. They have a lot of different shapes going on, spikes, pointy parts. You are trying to like flick it, and it's going to go wherever it wants to go. So it takes a lot of dexterity to really master this game.
So basically, if you want to roll pieces of metal,
yes,
or you want a like pretty small, portable, simple game to just mess around with while you're waiting for something.
Oh yeah, for
Good
sure.
choice.
It's that tie string bag. I mean, it would fit in your pocket. It's smaller than your phone. And you can take it, you play it on any tabletop space or any flat space you have. Like you said, carpet would be a lot, that would add a certain challenge to this game.
Nope. I think a couple times we managed to launch the head over what we were going to.
That's totally allowed too. Like that's a great shot.
Allowed.
Allowed.
Yeah, we intentionally did it.
Yeah, no, and that would be amazing. I don't think I have the dexterity to do that particular thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
What next?
Well, speaking of rolling, we have a couple of roll-in rights. So let's start with Brinks. So Brinks is a particularly great roll-in right. I really love the concept of this game. It is Tetris.
Okay.
You are rolling 2 dice, a d4 and then a d6 to figure out what shape you have to add to your Tetris sheet. One of the things I like about this is that every player has the same dice that you're using. So you roll, whoever's turn it is, they roll the dice. If it's your turn, you can re-roll. So if you roll something that's good for your opponent but not for you, you can change it. You're like, oh no, we're gonna redo that. And then you have to let the piece fall into your score sheet. And it's just like a Tetris-like score sheet. I guess the front has a better picture of it. It's a Tetris-like score sheet, and the piece has to fall. Now in Tetris,
I mean, like looking at the back, those are all Tetris pieces.
It's all Tetris pieces.
Yep.
And in Tetris, you have the option of like turning your pieces and moving them around. In Brinks, you can move them from side to side, but it costs energy to turn them. And energy is hard to come by. So there's a lot of strategy in the way that you place your bricks. The only way to get energy is by hitting these dots. There's going to be dots of different colors and squares, and you have to get a square of that color to fall on that dot. In the end, you get points for completing entire rows.
Okay.
Which is harder than it looks.
This 100% sounds like tabletop Tetris.
That's what it is.
If you are a big Tetris fan, if you're a big roll and write fan.
Yes, and it's also, this one is by Wolfgang Warsch. Warsch, am I saying that right?
I'm going to say yes.
I'm not good with the German names.
You are the expert.
Yeah, so he's the one who did Ganz schön clever, or That's So Clever, and Double So Clever. So if you like those, this is another great one by him. This one, generally, like, roll and writes are a big thing right now, but this one particularly catches my eye for the simplicity of the concept, but the difficulty of achieving your goal.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, are you going to continue with
roll and
writes?
Let's move on with our second roll and write there, Imperial Settlers roll and write. And they're very obvious in the name, like this is a roll and write. So Imperial Settlers roll and write, you are trying to build your empire, which is a big surprise for anyone who's played Imperial Settlers before. So this one, you are going to be managing resources. This is another one where you roll the dice, and it has a number of actions and a number of resources that everybody gets. And everyone gets the same one. And I really like that in both of these two, is that everyone gets the same resources. So I can't just get a roll of a 1 every time and someone else gets a roll of a 6 every time and they just swamp me.
It also keeps you engaged in other people's turns, it sounds like.
It's all about your decisions. And actually turns are simultaneous in both of these. So in Imperial Settlers roll and write, you get a certain number of actions and resources. And then you're trying to build buildings by marking off squares that cost resources or just cost actions, depending on the spot. And then this is an engine builder. So if you like other engine builders, this is a good way to go. It reminds me particularly of Welcome to Your Perfect Home, which is it's called a roll and write, but it's technically a flip and write. But it's another one where you're trying to strategize your engine building to make sure that things match up and correlate at the end. And there's a little bit
but when you say engine building, I'm curious about that, because a lot of roll and writes, you roll the die or you flip, or you generate the thing that you're going to generate.
Yes.
But when you say engine building, does that mean that if the buildings that you build, do they change how the resources will play for you?
They give you additional resources.
Oh, okay.
So if you're able early on to get certain buildings added in, you're going to get more resources. And then also you're using those resources to move up. For each resource, it has its own kind of victory point track, and the further you get, the more points you'll get at the end of the game. But you can also use some of your actions to mark off tracks that give you bridges that then give you access to fields, which is another way to get even additional resources. So you're trying to build yourself up.
But if everybody has access to the same resources, do you then have access to the same buildings, or do they use all the different factions from general Imperial Settlers to make it so that each player has a little bit different going on? Or
so everyone actually does have the same starting sheets. So this is one of those games that's all about your choices.
Okay.
You have a lot of choices going on, and you have to decide, where am I going to put my energy? What am I going to build first? And then really quickly, as soon as people have different buildings set up, they're going to differentiate in what they're able to do, because maybe I have 3 apples more than you have, but you have 2 more wood than I have.
Sure.
And so it's really going to affect, and the rolls will affect like what resources synergize
everybody
best.
starts off fairly close.
Yes.
But once they make different decisions, they're going to branch off.
They're going to branch off quite a bit. Yep.
It sounds a little bit more strategic than some of the other roll and writes.
It is, and in fact, looking at it, I felt at first that it was a little bit more complicated than some roll and writes. Once you learn the gameplay, it's pretty simple, but there is a lot of strategy going on, and like, what am I gonna do first? How am I going to optimize my choices here so that I get the most out of it?
So if this is Imperial Settlers branded,
yes.
Is there a lot here for fans of Imperial Settlers? Because I know that's a very popular game, but it was my understanding, because I haven't played it, but it's my understanding that it was, it's very like different civilizations / like faction-y focused. Like a lot of the fun was exploring that, but it doesn't sound like the factions are in here. So how much of Imperial Settlers is in this version?
I think a lot of the artwork is Imperial Settlers, as well as that engine building feel. Even though you're not like factions against each other, there is still that feel of like, we're going to compete on on a kind of a strategic and mental level which player can best optimize.
Okay. So the simulators are mainly like thematic as opposed to mechanical?
Mainly thematic.
Okay.
And I mean, I feel like the major mechanical one is just like resource management, action management.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Awesome. What's next?
So let's go on to Acquisitions Incorporated.
Okay.
Have you had a chance to look at this book at all yet?
I have not yet.
Oh my gosh, this book is hilarious. I really love it. So if you've seen the Penny Arcade, Penny Arcade has done some hilarious like compilations of different D&D scenarios, and this Acquisitions Incorporated is basically a sum up of that. It has great different, like not really characters, but it has different like specializations you can add to your characters, and it's mostly things that go together in this book. So this adds a corporate feel to your D&D game, which is hilarious because now you're like, well, we need to go do the dragon. Yeah. We need to go fight the dragon, but maybe we should talk to HR about like whether or not I'm going to get paid overtime for this. Like, this is a concern. I know it's eating people, but
because you're a franchise, you're a franchise of adventurers.
Yes, exactly. And so this book has, I mean, even if you just like pick this book up, read some of the introduction in it, it's entertaining, if nothing else.
I think just reading some of the titles of the positions that you can have in the franchise, of Decisionist, Documancer, Hordes Person, Loremonger, Obviator, Occultant. Like, I mean,
I really like the Occultant.
Secretarian, like that should kind of set the tone. Yeah. So if anybody isn't familiar, like the Acquisitions Incorporated is the name of like the campaign that a lot of the Penny Arcade and their friends have been playing through. They do huge live games at PAX. Yeah. They have, I think the C Team is a Twitch stream that they do. I think they did a show for that at Unplugged. But you know, this is kind of a very tongue-in-cheek, satirical like take on D&D that they've been doing live plays of. A lot of people have been following it. So this is the humor basically version of D&D. Yeah. And this is the chance for people to kind of replicate some of that by making their own franchise or taking some of the same okay, I'm instructed to hold this in front of my face because I'm hideous. So this is like your chance to kind of take some of that humor and maybe not play a D&D game that's quite so serious.
Oh yeah, a D&D game out of this book is going to be hilarious. It's going to be all laughs. It's going to be a lot of tongue-in-cheek. I mean, it would be very entertaining. And there is an adventure included in this book. So it has levels 1 through 6 adventure and everything you need in order to play that, which is really great.
Awesome. So who would you recommend this to?
I mean, anyone who loves D&D and particularly wants a little bit more humor in their game, who wants to play a campaign that's going to have, you know, a lot of laughs and a lot of like, really like, we can't do this because, you know, we have to worry about safety laws and things like that. Okay, like
where OSHA is the true enemy.
OSHA is a problem, man. We can't just go in and attack this guy. We've got to have our PPE on. You know, you got to have your eye protection and all of that. So it would really produce a very entertaining campaign.
Great. Do you think this is a good like starting campaign? Is this something that like if somebody is new to D&D, should they jump right into this? And do you have a sense for how accessible this is if you have not kept up with Acquisitions Incorporated, with the show?
I think if you haven't kept up with the show, this book is still pretty accessible. It really has everything you need in order to get going. It has a lot of information contained in this book. As far as whether or not it would be like a good first campaign, I don't think I would recommend it for that, just because this isn't like making your characters and things like that. I would recommend you have some familiarity with D&D already, and this would be more of something that you would do after you've played a few games.
So maybe get used to the tropes. Yeah. And then when you kind of, you know, are getting tired of them, you want something a little bit different.
Yeah, when you're ready for something more. As a first campaign, it might not be great because then you're adding all this other information.
Sure.
But it would be a great building block if you're just ready to go off and do something kind of different for a little while.
Sure, okay. What next?
Let's try Sorcerer next.
All right, so I see that we're doing this half of the table.
Yeah, do that half of that.
Okay.
I'm very methodical, so.
Are you one of those people who, like, when you eat dinner, you just kind of circle and you eat one thing and
Yeah,
then move to the
everything's
next
separate,
thing?
like moats in between, and then like nothing can touch. Yeah, it's very important.
Mix it all together.
Yes, yes. So, Sorcerer is a really beautiful new game from White
It has
Wizard
an aroma.
Games. Yes.
New game smell.
New game smell. So it's from White Wizard Games, and which, if you're familiar with them, they did Star Realms.
That's a really good
The player
component.
mats, the components of this game are amazing. They're very impressive. So one of the cool things about even the player mats is that they're double-sided for no reason other than aesthetics. Like, there is absolutely no reason that you need two sides. So one is kind of an Egyptian theme, and one is more of like an occult theme. And they're beautifully done, and you get to just choose, and that's just there for you. Like, it just says a lot about the quality of the components of this game.
No, like those boards are really nice and thick, and this cardboard is also very thick too.
Oh yeah. So this is a game. So it's not exactly a deck builder. It's a deck builder the way Smash Up is a deck builder. So you are taking and making your own character, and you have a few different things that you're going through. So you have a character deck, a lineage deck, and a domain deck. So you get to actually make who you want to be.
Okay.
Which is really awesome.
Oh,
So
boy.
at the beginning of the game, everyone drafts a character, a lineage, and a domain, and then you take those decks and you smash them together, just like Smash Up. You're gonna shuffle them together, and then that's who you play with.
So what are some of the example domains and stuff like that?
Okay, so like for instance, a domain might be the Forgotten Temple or the Outcast Sanctuary. So your character could be Tengu, the Animist of the Outcast Sanctuary.
Okay.
Or like Zervain, the Necromancer of the Screaming Coast.
Okay.
Like, so there's a lot of
I hear
cool
Summer in the
options.
Screaming Coast is real nice.
Yeah, it's really nice over there.
Really
Lots of,
picturesque.
it's never too quiet. If you're trying to get
Yeah,
away from the
it's
peace
never
and
too quiet.
it's perfect.
You just can't sleep unless there's some screaming going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect place for you. So you have 4 of each to start with. This game definitely leaves room for expansions.
4 of each in the base book.
4 of
Okay,
each in the
got
base
it.
game. So you have 4 characters, 4 lineage, and 4 domains. So this is a 2 to 4 player game, best at 2 players.
You can be a bloodlord.
You can be a bloodlord. And this is a territory control. So you have 3 locations that you're trying to control. And then the location battles remind me a lot of a TCG.
Okay.
You actually have dice rolling involved, so you will play
Is this
minions.
a vulture turtle?
It looks
Is
like
that a demon vulture turtle?
It's a vulture turtle.
Okay, all right. Just gonna
Vulture
put that
turtle.
there.
The cards are pretty
Okay.
great. So you have 3 locations that you're trying to control, and you're going to play minions to the locations, and then you're going to attack each other, essentially, and attack each other's minions and try and take control of those locations.
So when you say locations, like, because each of these domains, there's the temple, the sanctuary, whatever.
Those
You're
are-
not fighting over these. These are
No.
where you came from?
Yeah, the
Okay.
domains are more like your backstory. The locations are going to be these 3 different cards. These
So the
are
domains are like your
thick
summer
cards.
home. You summer home in the Screaming Coast.
Yeah,
but
but
you're
you're-
really like working in
But
Murder
you're
Manhattan.
really trying to take over. It's actually London. So
Okay,
you're trying to take
Murder
over
London.
like Whitechapel, Old London, and Southwark.
You say London, and then this is the art that we get for it,
Well,
So-
that's actually the Underground Hive.
which is a very popular tourist destination in London.
Yes, it's in London. Don't worry, one side of it's on fire, so it is correct to,
To London. Very
to
authentic.
London. Yes. All those spikes coming out of the building that's floating in air on the chains. Yeah, I think I saw that from the Eye of London.
Yep.
So this game is really it's an aggressive card game, and what's really great is that it's just different every time.
Okay.
With having so many character building options, you're not going to be playing the same game ever, because you're never going to be having the same person against somebody else.
So somebody in chat, did call out Smash Up again.
Yeah.
So Smash Up, you have the 2 factions, you put them together, you're
Yes.
fighting over bases.
Yes.
Here, you're putting together, a character, lineage, and domain to make your deck, and then you're fighting over the locations.
Yes.
That seems very, very Smash Up.
Yes,
but so,
it is.
is the actual combat also like Smash Up, or is
Not
it
at
more?
all.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Smash Up, your combat is mostly just points, like each character has like a certain number of points, and then whoever has the most points when a domain is complete takes that location. Whereas this is actual battle with dice. So each of your minions has a certain amount of attack.
Let's see what the stat on this
so
vulture turtle thing is.
So that one's a 3.
Okay.
So, for instance, the vulture turtle has a 3. So it would let you roll 3 of these.
Vertle.
Yes, a vertle. The vertle has a 3. So you would get to roll 3 dice of these attack dice. And now these attack dice have 4 different types of sides. Some are blank, some are stars, which are very important. They're 1 attack, but they let you select where the damage goes, whereas the other 2 are different amounts of attack, but your opponent gets to choose where the damage goes. So I can actually choose which of my creatures I'm going to let die. Or how I want to divide it.
Okay.
Now,
so I mean, it does basically sound like the kind of high level setup is similar to Smash Up.
Yes.
But the mechanics are much more like a
TCG.
I was about to say magic, or like a more complicated kind of magic.
That's,
Magic with dice.
Magic with dice, yes. And that's what the feel of this game is. The art is also noteworthy. I mean, if you haven't noticed the cover of the box, it's
There's
gorgeous.
a vulture turtle.
There's a vulture turtle. The components are quality. Good job.
That's what happens when you don't respect the vulture turtle.
There's really nice, like they use the glass beads. But yeah, so it's aggressive fighting. It's very well done. And this is not something, if you've just played Smash Up and that's the only game you've ever played and you're like, oh yeah, this sounds great. Yes, some of the early mechanics are similar, but this is a little bit more complicated than Smash Up. There's a little bit more going on. And by a little, I mean, there's a lot more aggression and fighting and dice, and more to keep track of. But this is definitely a game I would recommend to anyone who is looking for that next step from Smash Up, or who is really interested in this kind of art and has played some other trading card games, some more aggressive games. This might be something for them.
Great. So again, you're saying like people for Smash Up who want kind of like the next step, but
yeah.
also maybe like fans of Magic or fans of White Wizard's other games like Epic and things like
Star
that.
Realms. Yes.
And for those folks who maybe want to have like a strategic element of kind of moving around the board or controlling locations?
Yes. So, and you actually have your character actually will be in a specific location, and that's the only location that you can interact with directly.
Okay.
And you can attach equipment to your minions and things like that. So, there's one minion type where you have spider minions, and they're like, I think, they were described to me as bug hypnotists because they will like steal your cards and turn them into minions for their minions. Okay. So they're like sub-minions.
So minions on minions.
Minions on minions. Okay. So it's definitely a really intriguing game. Definitely worth trying out.
Cool.
Yep.
Great.
Okay, moving on. Going with something else with a little bit of an occult feel to it. Jonathan
I read
Strange.
this book.
You read the book?
It was very good.
Was it? Okay.
Yes.
This has intrigued me. I haven't necessarily read the book, but I found this very intriguing, and now I'm like, okay, now I want to. There's a BBC series.
Yeah.
And I want to go watch it now.
I watched the first episode. So I read the book, and it was very, very good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
It's it's very like kind of that classical Victorian, Elizabethan or Victorian like novel setting.
Okay.
It was remarkably like down to earth, considering that it's about magicians and like the Fae and stuff like that. The fairies in it are very, very creepy. Magic was like really neat and powerful, but not predictable. It was a very kind of nice story. I like how it explored having the fantastical elements and mixing them in with history, but not letting them overtake it. It was a very, very neat story. I liked it a lot. No,
it sounds amazing. And especially if you enjoyed the book, this game is for you. This is not a game that was like made and then they slapped a skin on it. This game was made for this book. Like it was, you can tell in every element, the theme comes through very beautifully in every element of this game. So you are actually playing as one of four wizards, and you are competing in 2 categories. So 1 for prestige, and 2 for your actual magicianship, your magical capabilities. So you have to kind of balance these two options. Now, this is an action selection game. So every turn you'll have a certain number of actions, but the order of turns depends on who has the most prestige.
Okay.
So your ultimate victory points come from magic, how much magic you do and but you can't just focus on that or you'll go last every round and lose out on a lot of opportunities.
So when you say action selection though, and points to spend it on, do you mean like just, there are X number of actions you can pick per turn, or kind of like Scythe, where there's an action you select? Or is it more like Puerto Rico, where there's actions that are out there and people pick them and then they're no longer available to everybody else?
So everyone has their own individual player board.
Okay.
And on your player board, you have specific actions.
Got it.
So we turn that around. It's kind of small, but you can see your own little player board with a little circle in the middle. Now, that has all of your action selection markers, and on your turn, you get to use them all, but you place them on your own player board. So you're not competing with other people for actions. You're just trying to organize your actions in a way that makes sense for you so that you can get the most out of them. One of the other cool things about this game is it actually has a map of London where you are moving your piece around. So you're trying to go to social engagements and meet interesting people, and there's some benefits to that because they can teach you new things.
And that's where you meet the weird fake creatures that are going to ruin your life?
Yes. So there's going to be all kinds of things. Yes, so there is the gentleman with the down feathered hair. And he is coming up, and at certain years throughout the game, so the game rounds progress in the form of years, and near the end of the game there will be specific years where it particularly matters, where players can face off against him, and basically you have to have a certain level of magic capability in order to beat him. Now, whoever beats him first gets points for that, and so there's definite benefit, and the benefit is you need to be on the highest prestige for those rounds in order to be the first one to take a chance at fighting him. So there's a real balance here between what you are going to focus on.
It's interesting, like some of the mechanical things you mentioned do kind of remind me of Scythe, now that I mention it.
Yes.
Interesting, because like the popularity track, prestige track, some of the action selection.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So there's you've got your personal action selection. You do have that prestige track. It's a very fine balance too.
So do you know what some of the actions you might take are?
Yeah, so some of your actions would be to move around the map, to try and get to locations, to attend an event that you've been invited to learn something new, to learn a new spell, or to practice your magic in some way. You're also keeping an eye, the Fae also have a track of how much magic they're learning. So you want to keep an eye on that and try and keep up with them.
Interesting. Yeah, like this is very intriguing. I really, really enjoyed the novel. I still need to watch the rest of it, because I watched the first episode. I haven't watched more. I need to watch that. And this kind of sounds like the kind of game that I like. And I noticed that it's Osprey because of their weird, distinctive box.
Yes.
And they have made some very, very nice games. They had, Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space.
Yeah.
And they had, not For the King. Do you remember? Like there was another. It was a controlling England game where you basically be playing cards that kind of take over sections of England, and it was a really, really, really tight territory control game. So Osprey has made some very, very good board games lately. So I'm really intrigued by that one.
Yeah, and this one, looking at the gameplay, if you're interested at all, take a look at this, because this game is great. If you've liked Scythe, if you liked Viticulture, if you've read the book, this is one of the few games where I feel like the theme is strong. There's a lot of games where you play them and you're just like, they slapped this on and the theme's cool for the pictures, but it has no relevance to gameplay. That is not the case with this game. This game is the theme. This is the book. This is the show. It's very thematic.
King is Dead is the game that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
That was very, very good.
Yeah.
Osprey has some really cool stuff.
Yeah. So this one is definitely recommend it, especially if you've read the book and you really enjoy the theme.
I need to make a note of the price of that one. There, okay. Great.
Okay.
I think that will be on my list for later.
Fair enough. So moving on, Quarriors Qultimate Edition.
Are there enough cues?
There are not enough cues. They just keep adding cues to everything.
That's definitely Quedition.
Quedition? Okay.
I'm going to go with Quedition on this.
Quedition. So Quarriors Qultimate Quedition, back after, I think it's been about 5 years since their last release of anything with Quarriors.
It's probably how long it took them to pull another cue out of the Scrabble bag?
Yes, exactly. They've been looking. So did you play the original Quarriors at all? Okay. So
I'm just an idiot.
Oh, well, that's fair. So Quarriors, if you see the back of the box,
There's a lot of dice in that
there
bag.
is a lot,
There's a lot of dice.
And in fact, it's 340 dice in this box. It's a lot of dice.
So do you like dice?
Yes. Do you like dice?
Get this game.
You'll like this game. This game is, so it looks really great.
Could we just move it a little bit to make the production crew have to go run over to the camera again?
Yeah. Let me just let's do that a little. So in this game, you are basically. It reminds me a lot of Dice Settlers. You are trying to acquire dice. So each dice represents like a creature or a spell. And you'll have a number of them out on the table. One of the nice things about having so many, this is actually the base game with every expansion, including promotionals. This is everything. This is everything they've ever produced for this game.
Qultimate Quedition.
Yes, exactly. It is everything that's there.
Everything that ever was.
Everything that ever was. Like promotionals, everything. In fact, it even has an added promotional that was never released before this.
Does that count?
It's like, what is it called? It's like Santa Claus of years past.
Oh my God. If a promotion was never released, is it really promoting?
Yeah, that's true. A bonus edition, but it looks great. So you have all these dice out on, you'll have specific cards that tell you what each dice does. Every dice is a different color. They have different dice facings. And then every turn you draw 6 dice out of your bag. So you're deck building with dice. You draw your dice out, you roll them.
Bag building.
You use them to buy more creatures. You use creatures to fight each other. Basically, the point of creatures is they attack each other. If any creatures survive through the round, you get victory points for them.
Okay.
And then they go away. So you're trying to get more creatures to get your victory points. Whoever is the first to 20 wins the game.
So there's a bunch of dice, but there's a bunch of cards as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, 'cause, like, I guess my question there is, what do the cards do? Are the cards what you use to figure out what the dice do?
Yeah, so the cards represent the different creatures. So what happens is every game, you're not going to play with every card and every set of dice. You're going to pull out, I think about 10.
Dominion-y kind of thing.
Like Dominion-y. Like you'll pull out 10 cards and then you'll take the dice associated with that card. And then those are the cards you have available to buy. And yes, Dominion's the perfect example because you have that market.
But do you add the cards to like a deck of yours of some kind, or is the cards stay out?
No, the cards stay out. So there's one card per type, and it will stay on the
that makes
table.
sense.
Yeah, and what you're adding is your dice. So when you buy dice using mana from other dice, you'll buy dice and you'll put them in your discard pile for dice. When your bag's empty, you take all your dice, put it back in your bag, and pull out. There are even ways to cull your dice and get rid of the things you don't want. So just like deck building.
Yeah. It's usually a super strong move for deck building.
Yes. And so it's a really great game, and it looks amazing, especially if you like Dice Settlers, Dice Throne. If you just like sitting on the table rolling dice, if you're one of those people that like walks into Mox and like digs in the dice bin, like because you like the feel of it.
I was about to say that this is a game about collecting all the dice. It's like that
all
sounds
the
like
dice.
every gamer ever just about.
Yeah, collect all the dice. Yeah, I have someone in one of my gaming groups where she gets a little twitchy if she doesn't roll enough in the RPG. So like this is the game for her. Like here's some dice.
So it sounds like it's kind of the perfect game.
300 dice.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the perfect game for like I don't know, like a teen kind of getting into games too. It's just like a million dice to roll.
Yeah, it's a ton of dice to roll. It's a lot of fun. It's not overly complicated. I mean, the 300 dice can be overwhelming, but the game itself, you're only going to play with like maybe 50 of them. The extra dice are they're your trade-in options, and that's what gives you a lot of replayability in this game.
How similar is this to Dice Masters?
Fairly similar.
Okay, like similar kind of mechanics, or?
Well, I haven't personally played Dice Master, so I'm not 100% sure, but from my understanding and what I've looked at, they look pretty identical.
Okay, great.
Yep.
I think we have one more game.
One more game. So
I'm glad we're entertaining somebody here.
Yeah. Our last game is Tookie. Tookie, maybe? Tookie? Tucky? I think it's Tookie.
I'm going to go with Tookie.
Tookie. So our last game is Tookie. And this is a game where you are actually trying to build stones. So, you know, in history, people have used stacking stones as markers to signify, you know, messages or have different meanings to them.
There's a lot of these like in Canada and Siberia, I think.
Yes, yeah. And so this is kind of a game based on that concept. In Tookie, you have a number of stones, which are going to be, we'll go ahead and turn that around. You have a number of these different colored long bricks. And these are pretty like weighty materials too. The idea is that it's originally when they thought of this, it was like they wanted dice that were stuck together. So these are weighty materials in order to make this game work.
Sure.
And then you have blocks that represent snow.
Okay.
And you are actually going to flip a card. This is a dexterity game. You flip a card and you roll a dice to see which like direction you're going to turn the card in, which will change how you have to stack these blocks. And then everyone's going to race to build their different Tookie. This is not one where you have to be first every round. You just have to not be last.
Okay.
This is a shove your neighbor in front of the bear kind of situation.
In front of the stone stacked bear?
In front of the stone stacked bear. Yeah, you have a little bear there. Yeah, just be like, oh, did I knock over your tower?
The bear die will eat you.
Yes.
Speaking of Tetris,
yeah,
this kind of seems like this is almost reverse Tetris.
This is reverse Tetris. That's exactly it. So you're competing to be the first one to be able to build these different formations and really display them at their best. Now, if you are the last person certain number of times in a row, you're disqualified.
Okay.
Then a final round triggers, and whoever is the fastest to build the next one is who wins the game.
Okay. So you play until one person is eliminated, and then that triggers final round?
And then it triggers final round, and it's first player.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Have you had a chance to play it yet?
I haven't. I've watched some gameplay of it, and it looks really cool. One of the nice
It is very
things,
pretty.
Yeah, one of the nice things about it is there's lots of difficulty levels. When I first looked at it, I was like, oh, it doesn't look that hard. But there are ways to adjust the difficulty levels. Like you can have less snow blocks, and then you have to be really creative with how you get these things to stand up, because the formations they give you are not things that will stand up on their own. So you have to really work at it to get it to work.
So because it's a dexterity game,
yes.
It seems like it's a very tactile thing to play with,
yes.
Which is good for people who want something like a kind of a different experience.
Yes.
It also seems like it's a pretty family-friendly game.
Yeah, it totally is. It's very adjustable. This would be a good drinking game. This would be a good family game, right? Dexterity games
probably
are
don't
great
mix
for
the drinking and family together.
Not together, but one or the other. It also has a lot, like I said, like you can change the difficulty level for this, and even if you were playing with younger kids,
based on how much you like the family you're playing with, or how much you're drinking.
Like do you want to destroy your child's dreams and hopes in life? Like just take all their snow away and say, oh, you can't do it? Rough.
Parenting with Elle.
Yeah, that's how my kids will be raised. Or if you're a loving parent, not like me, you can add extra snow cube. I'm not a parent, so I can say that. My children won't be sad. You can add the snow cubes to your child and be like, here's a handicapped, like here's an extra snow cube.
I just mentioned family game just because I find that games that are very tactile, games that involve a lot of kind of like playing around with stuff with your hands, I think tend to be very accessible, especially to like younger players or players who don't normally play board games of one kind or another.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a way to interact with a game that doesn't involve knowing how the Bloodlord from the Forgotten Sanctuary works.
Yeah, you don't have to remember a lot of terms. You don't have to remember a lot of functions. It's just here's some blocks, make them stand up in a specific way, and that is very accessible thing. But yeah, it's definitely great for families. Like I said, you can handicapped, you can unhandicapped other people. It's just an easy game to pick up on, but a hard game to succeed at. It's more difficult to make work than you would think.
Very neat.
Yeah.
Interesting game, interesting theme. Thank you very much for bringing all these games. Thank you for sharing them with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing the research to tell us how they actually play.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody at home, for watching. Thanks, Mock Sporting House, for sending out the games and lending us your time to teach us.
Yeah.
And that is it for the new release rundown.